things about playing in the Pac-12 is just a challenge every week of facing different styles of offense. And we go from, a team that was keeping things tight and run-oriented to a team this week versus Arizona that's going to spread the field as much as you can possibly spread it. And so, it requires different mindset. And it's a challenge, and it's fun, and it's exciting, and we'll be up for it. So, yesterday we spent the day looking at the Stanford film, and we met with our players. We went through corrections, and we put that one behind us. And we'll take the lessons we've learned, and we'll apply them going forward. But we put the disappointment behind us, and try to recognize the good things we did, and correct the things that we need to do better, and move on. And I think our guys embrace that attitude. So. Another great challenge this week, and got to get ourselves back up and going, and I think we will.
Did it help that there were quite a few things to like from that game when you went back and watched it?
It does. I mean, losing's just so awful, and the bottom line is do you win or do you lose? Now we've lost 2 games to 2 top 10 opponents. One on one of the last plays of the game and one in overtime. And so you take a little bit of solace from that, but the bottom line is we came here to win. But I think in any loss or any victory, there are some good things that you can find, and you have to make sure you build on those, and you have to recognize the things that you didn't do well and the reasons that you didn't get it done, and you have to correct those. And that's kind of always the approach. I think you have to have some sort of consistency in how you evaluate a game after it's either a win or a loss, in order to get better.
Are the guys pretty good at the psychological aspect of moving on, or do you feel like you, after a game like that, had to step in and maybe say a little bit more than you would normally to kind of get them refocused?
They were as down as I've ever seen this group on Saturday after the game. I felt them slowly come back yesterday, and we made a pact that when we walked off that field after our corrections period, and we went to our team dinner, which we have every Sunday night, that we were going to put our smiles back on our face, and we were going to reignite the enthusiasm, and we were going to put that loss behind us, and we were going to look forward with a positive attitude. And I felt them start to come back alive. So, the one thing about young men at this age is they are resilient, and they do get over things quickly, and they will move on. But we'll move on with, lessons learned, which is always important. I don't like that thought of, hey, just go to the next one. Well, let's go to the next one, but apply the lessons we learned in the last one or the last 3.
Are there some guys on the team that kind of lead that bounce back, would you say?
Yeah. And you probably know who they are, the Jayon Browns, the Scott Quisenberrys, the Jaleel Wadouds, the Fabian Moreaus, the Soso Jamabos, the Mossy Johnsons, the Connor McDermott's, the Eddie Vanderdoes, the Elys, the Tack. There's a lot of guys, that just kind of have that mindset. Kenny Young's like that. Jacob's like that. It's a good group. This is a good group of young men, and I really like this football team a lot. I like the way they competed the other night. Obviously, we were disappointed in the loss. I like the way they're bouncing back. I love the way they think. I love the way they treat each other. I love the way they prepare. And I think we have a chance to do something special this year. It's been made more difficult, obviously, by losing the other night, but we're still on track.
Has there been some tweak to the defense for rushing defense? Because the last 2 weeks, the front 7 or front 8 have performed really well. Was there a tactical difference?
Maybe a little bit, but nothing that's overly significant. Just probably, more of an emphasis on stopping the run, which puts our secondary in a lot of man coverage, and they've held up rather well. Unfortunately, we gave up one in man coverage the other day to lose the game. We thought they were going to run the ball. They're in a run formation. We call it a run defense. You're asking your corners to go out there on an island. They've done it all day and held up really well, and they got us at the end. And we've got to find a way to get over that hump. But we believe you have to be committed to stopping the run. We believed the other day that the way they were going to beat us was with Christian McCaffrey. We did a pretty good job against him, and they found another way to beat us. And they're a good team, and they got us. So we just got to bounce back.
Looking at the film, looking at your offensive game plan, is there some things maybe you might rethink looking at the film?
Not the game plan. The game plan was as sound as it could be, and we left hundreds of yards out there in the run game. And there were some enormous holes that were not hit. And no, I mean, if I would tell you, I would say yes, the game plan was not good. If you had a chance to look at the film, the coach's copy, and you understood the concepts as they were taught, you'd just be, oh my God, you'd be as frustrated as we were. And you know, it's something we have to get over, and we have to make sure we do a better job as coaches of teaching exactly what we want. Because obviously we didn't do a good enough job because there was so much out there that we didn't get. I exaggerate when I say hundreds, but probably 100, you know, in the run game specifically. And it was really hard to see it until you looked at the film, and then it was very, very obvious.
Is that mostly on the running backs you're saying they are missing holes?
It's just, you know what, it's on us as coaches to make sure that they have a better understanding of the scheme and how they're supposed to fit in the scheme. I don't want to put it on those guys. I mean, it's everybody. You know, it's like we talk about sacks or pass rush, or, you know, it's always a team proposition. You know, no one player wins or loses a game or screws up or excels on a play. It's kind of all of us as coaches. That's why we say we didn't perform well enough, because performance to me is all of us. Play is the players. Perform. We didn't perform well enough.
Kennedy was talking about how maybe he can't quite coach the running backs as much as he wants or as much as he had in the past, now that he's also watching the entire offense. Is that something that may have played into that as well?
It could have, but that's been adjusted. I mean, Kennedy's going to be as involved with the running backs as he's ever been going forward. And it's not to say that he had lessened his grip on it. It's just his role had expanded. You know, one of the challenging things about college football is the limitations that they put on you with regards to staff. You know, you can only have 9 full-time coaches. And so you have to double up at some positions. You know, your coordinator has to coach a position, and that makes it difficult. It makes it demanding and challenging, especially with recruiting being a factor as well during the season. You get spread kind of thin, but Kennedy's doing an amazing job, and I love the direction we're headed, and I think we're going to see some major breakthroughs here.
Having looked at the film, how did the run blocking against Stanford compare to what it was?
You know what? I
BYU?
just talked about that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just went in depth against our run game. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Arizona has a pretty good dual threat quarterback. I think he ran for more yards than he passed for last week. Where does he kind of rank among the dual threat guys you're going to face this year, do you think?
Well, this kid has lightning speed. I mean, he is really, really, really fast. And he doesn't need a lot of room to get through. And he's big and physical enough to break arm tackles. Comparing him to, I can't compare him to the guys that we're going to face because I haven't seen them. But I guess the most obvious comparison would be Hill at BYU. And he's a faster, more explosive athlete with less experience. He, once again, is a guy that we have to stop. We have to stop him as a runner first, because he can really, really hurt you that way.
And the success you had against Hill and McCaffrey, is that to make you feel good going?
I don't know if it makes me feel good. I think what we're learning how to do, we're learning how to, as a team, identify the guy that can hurt you most and try to take him away, you know. But every week's just a brand new challenge. And this young man this week he's really dynamic with the ball in his hands.
Is some of that Jayon and Kenny have done really well spying quarterbacks last couple of weeks?
Yeah, you know, we put emphasis on taking care of the quarterback and even our front four. You know, defensive linemen are sometimes judged on tackles and sacks by others. You know, every pass play doesn't have to be a sack. And one of the reasons we played so well against BYU is we squeezed the pocket and we didn't give him a lot of escape lanes. And by squeezing the pocket, you know, he couldn't follow through on some of his throws. He couldn't escape and get out. And then sacks became, you know, something that we got as the game went along. So, yeah, I don't like the term spy. I'd rather use the term cover the quarterback. You know, we got to assign a guy to the quarterback. And, you know, you can't do that in every defense. But, you know, we try to do it when we think that it's necessary.
Eli, how did he come out of that?
Ely? I know. I called him the wrong name for a couple of years. So that's a Canadian name. he'll be touch and go for this week. Yeah, he'll be touch and go. He's in a brace. It didn't look like there was any serious structural damage. I think it's just swelling and pain management.
So was it like the lower leg? Or
No, it was elbow.
Oh, elbow.
You talking about Ilianku?
Yeah.
It was elbow.
Elbow,
Yeah, it
okay.
was elbow. It was elbow.
And anybody else? Was Soso banged up a little bit?
No, Sosa was okay. I'm trying to think who else was banged up. I think Ely's really kind of the only one that we're concerned about this week in terms of, going through the week and seeing where he is for Saturday. I think other than that, as far as I can recall, we're in pretty good shape.
Tack got through the game.
Tack got through the game. It's, like we talked about last week, every week it's gonna be managing that groin, because you could see a couple times during the game where it tightened up on him. And then he'd go to the sideline, he'd get it loosened back up, and he'd come out and he'd play a few more snaps. He's a warrior. He wants to be out there helping his team.
Bolu is giving you some nice pop in the run game.
Who's
So,
that?
Bolu.
Well, yeah,
You give him maybe a longer look in practice this week.
Bolu did some nice things. Nate did some nice things. Like I said, it's not always what it looks. We left a lot of yards out there, So we're going to start, dialing it back on how many guys we play, at running back and receiver, and get specific guys in there for specific things. And so you'll still see all three, but you'll see less of two and more of one.
I don't know if you talked about this. Did Darius Pickett go through concussion protocol on Saturday after the hit on Burns where he came out a couple plays?
You'd have to ask our doctors that.
Okay.
But one thing I can tell you for certain is that we are overly cautious when it comes to head, neck, and spine. I mean, we're not going to play with head, neck, and spine injuries. We're not going to put these young men in any more harm's way than they already are playing this sport.
Right.
You talked about tightening the receiver rotation. I think 1 week had 14 guys catch balls, 12 guys. Is there a number that you would like to see on a weekly basis that's good?
That's a question that I've never even thought to answer. I can't say that I have an answer for that. I just want to see us be productive. And I think someone asked me, it might have been you after the game or somebody I can't remember about the tight end involvement. Because Nate led us in receptions with 5 this past week, and was that planned? And no, it wasn't planned. It was just something that, transpired because of the coverages that they were playing and Josh going through his reads. I think the most important thing is that, our receivers understand the concepts, they run the right routes. Josh understands the concepts, he reads the right coverages, goes through his progressions and gets it to the right guy. The important thing is just making sure that in the game, the players that are running the routes have gotten the repetitions in practice. And so you kind of have to shrink it down a little bit. And you can't give everyone everything, but you got to make sure you're giving the right guys the right opportunities in practice so they can do it well in a game.
How does Theo
Last
Howard
question here,
figure
guys.
into that?
Who?
When Theo Howard, when you're shrinking maybe the rotation?
Theo's still involved. We want to involve Theo. We want to involve Brandon Stevens. We want to involve Jalen Starks. We've got a lot of good, talented players. But we have some guys that we really like and are really talented, and they're doing a nice job at receiver. And Theo's going to get his shots, and when he does, he's got to take advantage of them. And we've got to make sure that we pick the right spots for him so we can create some success for him. We tried to create something for him against BYU, and there was some uncertainty within his play on that play that was designed for him. And that's pretty natural for a young player. And so when that happens as a coach, you're taken aback a little bit. And you say, okay, wait a minute, maybe we're giving him too much. Maybe we need to slow it down for him. There's no doubt that he's got ability, but playing at this level with the amount of talent on the field and the speed, it's different. It's harder. It's a lot harder.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it.